possibly stolen. I'm gonna need you to step out of the car.
Stolen? That can't be right. This is my car. I'm coming from the hospital. I'm a surgeon.
It's really your car. You won't mind stepping out and proving it. You're making a mistake. I haven't done anything wrong.
The siren chirped once, sharp and impatient, cutting through the quiet of a late-night street. A sleek black sedan rolled to a stop under the orange haze of a street lamp. Inside, a black man in light blue scrubs rested his hands calmly on the steering wheel, hospital badge still hanging from his neck. In the glare of the dashcam, you can see him take a deep breath. He had just finished piecing together someone else's shattered body. Now he was about to watch his own life be taken apart in slow motion. The officer's flashlight punched through the driver's side window, sweeping across his face, his scrubs, the stethoscope tossed on the passenger seat. "Evening, sir," the officer said, voice already tight with suspicion. "This vehicle was flagged as possibly stolen. I'm going to need you to step out of the car." The man blinked, confused. "Stolen? Officer, that can't be right. This is my car. I'm just coming from the hospital. I'm a surgeon." The beam of light paused on his hospital ID for half a second, then moved on as if it didn't matter. "If it's really your car," the officer replied, "you won't mind stepping out and proving it." What happened next, captured on Dashcam and later slowed down in a courtroom, turned an ordinary drive home into a $4.7 million lesson about power, bias, and what it means to be black in America, even when you've done everything right. And this story isn't just about one officer and one surgeon. It's about how quickly a life can be reduced to a stereotype, and what happens when the camera doesn't lie. Before we break down how a routine stop turned into a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, take a second and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this need to be seen, not buried, tap like and subscribe so more people can see what really happens when the lights come on and the excuses begin. Now, let's rewind. For most of his life, Dr. Marcus Hayes believed in systems. He believed that if you studied hard, followed the rules, did your job better than anyone else, the world would eventually make sense. He grew up in a working-class black neighborhood where sirens were background noise and police were people you avoided, not people you called. His mother, a nurse's aide, used to come home exhausted, shoes in her hand, feet aching. She'd sit at the kitchen table and say, "Maybe if we were the ones in the white coats, they'd have to listen to us." Marcus took that sentence and carried it like fuel. He crushed his exams, earned scholarships, made it through medical school on grit, coffee, and the memory of every neighbor who had died too soon because they couldn't afford proper care. By the time he was in his late 30s, he was a respected trauma surgeon. When someone's life was hanging by a thread, he was often the one holding the scissors away from it. The car he drove that night wasn't a random luxury toy. It was a symbol. Years of overnight shifts, missed birthdays, 48-hour calls, all wrapped in leather seats and a quiet engine. A reminder that his sacrifice had meant something. But on that particular night, none of that mattered. All the officer saw was a black man in an expensive car. The official reason for the stop went like this. The vehicle's license plate matched the description of a car reported stolen in another part of town. On paper, that sounds reasonable. But when lawyers finally got hold of the dashcam and dispatch logs, the details told a different story. There was no active stolen vehicle alert on that plate. There was no dispatch broadcast telling officers to be on the lookout for a car like his. What there was, clearly recorded in real time, was an officer making a snap judgment and then twisting reality to fit it. On the dashcam audio, you can hear it. "Run this plate," the officer says. "I've got a black male in a high-end sedan. Looks out of place." Those 3 words, "looks out of place," were the quiet heartbeat behind everything that followed. Marcus tried to stay calm. Years in the operating room had trained him to keep his voice steady, even when someone's pulse was crashing. "Officer, again, this is my car," he explained, still seated, hands visible. My registration is in the glove compartment. My license is in my wallet. I work at County General. I just finished a 15-hour surgery day. Instead of listening, the officer escalated. Step out of the vehicle now, he ordered. Hands where I can see them. Don't reach for anything. Marcus hesitated. Not because he was hiding something, because he knew how quickly things could go wrong. That half-second of hesitation was all the officer needed to claim non-compliance. The door was yanked open. Marcus was pulled out, spun around, and pushed against his own car, the cool metal of the hood pressing into his chest. His hospital badge swung forward and tapped against the paint. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus asked, voice cracking slightly for the first time that night. "Because I don't think this is your car," the officer replied. "We'll figure it out downtown. The dashcam doesn't capture humiliation the way a human heart feels it. It doesn't show the memories firing all at once, or his mother's warnings about police, the lectures he'd sat through on how to survive a traffic stop, the countless stories of black men who didn't make it home. But it does capture the sound of his breathing speeding up. It captures the metallic click of handcuffs closing on wrists that hours earlier had been delicately suturing arteries. It captures the officer muttering, almost under his breath, "Never seen a guy like this driving a car like that around here." A second patrol car pulled up. One of the backup officers approached, shining his light over the scene. "Everything good?" he asked. "Yeah," the rookie replied. "Probable stolen vehicle. Drivers being difficult. Difficult. That word covers a lot of sins. No mention that the driver had been cooperative. No mention of the hospital EID. No mention of the fact that, as the dashcam would later prove, Marcus had offered his documents, not refused. He was loaded into the back of the squad car. From that angle, the dashcam shows the back of his head as he sits in silence, city lights scrolling past, life suddenly shrinking to the length of a hard plastic seat. At the station, things didn't get better. For nearly an hour, Marcus sat handcuffed in a processing room while officers verified his identity and the status of the vehicle. When they finally ran the VIN properly, one thing became unavoidable. The car was registered to him. The insurance was in his name. There were no stolen vehicle reports, no outstanding warrants, no reason, beyond assumption, for any of this to have happened. The rookie officer's justification shifted. He claimed Marcus had been evasive. He claimed he had feared for his safety. He claimed the surgeon had reached for something in the car, even though the video clearly showed otherwise. Eventually, without an apology, without paperwork documenting an arrest, Marcus was told he was free to go, just like that, as if the last 2 hours had been a minor inconvenience, not a trauma. He walked out of the station into the early morning air, feeling both numb and burning. His car was waiting for him in the lot. He sat behind the wheel, hands back on the steering wheel, in the same position they'd been when the whole thing started. Except now, those hands were shaking. For a few days, he tried to do what many people do. He tried to bury it. He told himself he was lucky it hadn't gone worse, lucky he was alive, lucky he hadn't been charged. But then he watched the dashcam. His attorney had requested the footage as part of a formal complaint. The city had to turn it over. Watching the recording in real time was like having a mirror held up to everything he'd felt, and everything they'd tried to deny. There it was, the officer's initial comment about a black man in a high-end car. There it was, Marcus calmly offering his license and registration. There it was, the officer ignoring his ID, ignoring his explanation, going straight to force. The lies in the police report weren't just inaccurate, they were contradicted, line by line, by the officer's own camera. That dashcam changed everything. Marcus filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. He wasn't just asking for money, he was accusing the city and its police department of unlawful detention, false arrest, racial profiling, and violating his 4th and 14th Amendment rights. And suddenly, this wasn't just a quiet embarrassment for the department. It was a public problem. As the case moved forward, the city's lawyers did what they often do. They tried to chip away at his credibility. They suggested he was overreacting. They implied that a reasonable person wouldn't have been traumatized by a brief investigative detention. But juries aren't made of legal jargon. They're made of people who know what it feels like to be singled out for no good reason. When the dashcam footage was played in pre-trial hearings, even the courtroom fell quiet. There was no aggressive driving, no raised voice from Marcus, no sudden movements that could be twisted into threatening. Just a calm, exhausted doctor being treated like a suspect for existing in the wrong body, in the wrong car, in the wrong part of town. The officer's own words did more damage than any cross-examination could. And that's the thing about cameras. They don't fix injustice by themselves, but they do make it a lot harder to hide. Let me throw this to you. When you watch situations like this, do you think a cash settlement is enough? Or should there be automatic consequences for officers whose own footage proves they lied? Tell me in the comments what you think accountability should really look like. The closer the trial date got, the more the city wanted the problem to go away. A courtroom showdown risked more than just bad headlines. It risked a legal precedent, a jury verdict that could be cited in case after case. So, like so many of these stories, this one ended not with a dramatic jury reading out a verdict, but with paperwork. After negotiations, the city agreed to pay Dr. Marcus Hayes $4.7 million. On the record, there was no formal admission of wrongdoing. Off the record, the number spoke for itself. For Marcus, the money was both something and not nearly enough. It couldn't erase the memory of cold metal against his chest. It couldn't undo the fear he felt when he saw red and blue lights in his rearview mirror, even months later. But it could do a few other things. He used part of the settlement to endow scholarships for black medical students who wanted to go into emergency and trauma care. He funded a community program that offered Know Your Rights training, free legal clinics, and mental health support for people who had experienced police trauma. And quietly, with a kind of bitter irony, he donated to an organization pushing for mandatory body and dashcam usage, and for policies that actually enforce consequences when the footage shows misconduct. The officer stayed on the force, at least for a while. There were disciplinary hearings, internal investigations, and additional training. But the deeper impact of this case wasn't just what happened to one cop. It was the message it sent to every department watching. If you're going to police people based on stereotypes, your own cameras might one day testify against you. This story, like so many others, shatters the comforting myth that success can shield you from profiling. You can wear a white coat, carry a stethoscope, save lives for a living, and still be seen as a suspect in the blink of an eye. You can follow every rule you were told would protect you and still end up in handcuffs on the hood of your own car. The difference, more and more, is whether the truth is recorded. Dashcams and bodycams don't erase racism. They don't untrain bias. But they do something powerful. They create a record that doesn't blush, doesn't look away, and doesn't rewrite its story afterward. In the end, the flashing lights turned off. The paperwork was filed. The city cut a check, added another line to its budget under settlements, and moved on. But for Marcus, and for everyone who sees themselves in him, the lesson lingers. Justice, when it comes, is often late, incomplete, and paid out in dollars instead of real change. The question is whether we're willing to treat cases like his as isolated mistakes, or as warnings about a system that keeps repeating itself. Because until that system changes, there will always be another night, another stop, another officer who thinks someone looks out of place in a car they worked their whole life to afford, and another dashcam, quietly recording, waiting to be played back in a courtroom where the truth finally speaks for itself.